everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love, something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 Something about your love, something about your love changes it.
Greetings, teammates. I pray you are well. This is Tim Morton with Southeast Michigan FCA, and welcome to another Testimony Tuesday, where we try to provide a platform for others to share their powerful stories of transformation. You know, every story has a hero, a villain, a victim, and a guide. And Jesus Christ was and still is to this day the greatest hero maker ever. I'm sure you would agree with me that we have enough villains and victims that are out there, and we would have no heroes. And boy, you're in for a treat today because we have a hero maker, a local hero maker here in Rochester Hills that I'm going to bring in, Sean Jacobson, in just a second. He has an incredible personal story, and he has an incredible mission that he's building out through the platform of FCA. So I want to bring him in so you can get to know him. And Sean, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. So we have some things in common. Number one, we're both Avondale grads.
Yeah.
You were more on, I was basketball, you're more wrestling. Did you play football? I can't remember if you were football.
No, I did golf and cross country, wrestling all 4 years, and then a little bit of baseball, mostly track.
Yes. And both of us have been mentored by a same man, Ray Went. And I know you're going to talk about him a little bit when you get into his story. Both of us became teachers and became coaches. And I had the pleasure of going back to Avondale High School and teach and coach there. You've been a coach there, and now you continue to be a coach there, but you teach in the Rochester School District.
Yeah.
You have an amazing family, a big family. And man, it's just been a pleasure to watch the Lord work in your life over the last 5 years that I've been a part of the ministry. You've been with us from the very beginning and have said no to very few things. You're a huddle coach there at Rochester Van Hoosen. You come and volunteer out at our Michigan FCA camp and as a huddle leader there. And so, man, I just want to say how grateful I am for all the things that you've said yes to, and for me being a witness to seeing your own personal growth and just how you've been a great big part of the growth, especially locally here in Oakland County. And so I want to give you the opportunity to share, how you came into this relationship with Jesus. So I'm going to step aside and give you the floor so you can share.
All right. Yeah. So one of my first memories was when I was in sixth grade, being with a group of kids, and they started talking about their church. And up to that point, my family didn't really go to church. And so I remember them asking me, what church you go to? And I was like, it never really even crossed my mind. Faith stuff was not really a priority for me. And so I forget what I said, but that was kind of the first thing that got me thinking, like, up to this point in my life, life was pretty much about being a good kid, doing well in school, doing well with my sports. That was kind of what life was about. And so that was the first time where I was kind of prompted to maybe think a little bit bigger, and start questioning maybe there's something bigger out there for me, but still kind of let it go and kept living my life. And then seventh grade, go to Avondale Middle School, and I have a gym teacher named Mr. Went, Ray Went. And just right away seeing something was different about this guy than other people that I had been spending time with. And I wasn't quite sure what it was at first, but just drawn to him. I knew he was tough, but that wasn't quite it. Couldn't put my finger on it. But he would wear these shirts with Bible verses and things like that on them. And just the character type messages that he would share, I was really drawn to that. And so I ended up going to Summer Fun, which was just starting, actually, my seventh grade year. Just started to be a part of that, where it was a smaller group of guys. And Mr. Wentwood was more free over the summer to kind of open up more and share more from the Bible and about his life and his testimony. And I started to figure out what it was that was drawing me to him that I hadn't really been aware of. So I started to learn from him. During this time, I started getting interested. I started going with my grandma to Wednesday night church. So learning a little bit that way. But I wasn't really the type of person who, I heard the message once and I'm totally in and make that decision. It took me a while. I had to do some research on my own. I had to read the Bible for myself before I really made a decision, later, as far as making that commitment to follow Jesus. And so one of the things that really drew me to that, when I remember reading Matthew 7 about building the house on the rock instead of the sand. And that verse, when I was first getting into it and investigating the Bible, was one that really stuck out to me, because I was thinking about, up to this point in my life, I was doing a pretty good job of being a good kid. I was a good student, never got into trouble. Not an all-star athlete, but a good athlete, and had been somewhat successful, but up to that point, still empty, still not good enough, still feeling insecure about myself. And so reading that part about, it felt like I was building my house on sand that was just kind of falling away underneath me. And I wanted a more solid foundation. There was something in me that wanted something to matter, to make an impact, more than I was doing. And so as I made that commitment, to make Jesus the Lord of my life, that's when things really started to put things into perspective. Another thing that really put me over the edge to make that commitment was, I remember Mr. Went had shared a quote from a guy named C.T. Studd, who was in England and was like a cricket guy, all-star cricket guy, and then left all of his fame and fortune to go be a missionary in China. And the quote from him was, "Only one life will soon be passed. Only what's done for Christ will last." And that, not even a verse from the Bible, but that really hit me, and that really put things into perspective, that there's something deeper and more important than just being a good athlete, being a good student, being a good kid, staying out of trouble. And so since I made that commitment, it reframed sports for me. It reframed the direction I was going in my life. It made me want to become a teacher and a coach. That was a huge driving force, because I saw the impact Mr. Went made, more than just, and he was a good coach in other ways too, but the impact he made on lives, that really lasted and made a difference outside of the sports. And it just directed my life to now where I'm a teacher, and I'm a coach. I coach cross country, I coach wrestling. And I see those as platforms, as a calling for me, that God can use me to make a difference in the lives of kids. And I think he's equipped me in ways to especially work with middle school and high school young men and young women.
Man, use the words rethink, and I'll add a couple more. Rethink, reform, and just are what the gospel really does. It helps us to rethink and reform, and really just creates this incredible desire in us to want to be a kingdom builder. Mm-hmm. This is all about being a hero maker, Sean, and it's quite clear that you wouldn't be where you're at today without the influence and the guidance of Coach Went. And it's really clear and evident of what he's done in your life. I also appreciated the fact that you said it wasn't instantaneous. It was a process for you. And that consistency of seeing it modeled by him is really what drawn you to it. And I know you were able to see fruit happen in his life, in the lives of others around you, and in your own. And so I'm so grateful that we're on the same team under the same master coach, and that both of us were mentored by Coach Went. He's had a huge impact on me as well. And that we get to do ministry with him. Now, we're all on the same team, trying to be kingdom builders, leading others into this growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And man, isn't it nice to get up every morning, and every morning be game day, and to live with purpose through something that's greater than ourselves. And just really cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I also want to say thank you for being the huddle coach at Van Hoosen. Can you relate to us a little bit on why you said yes to that? I think it's in relation to your purpose, but you didn't have to say yes to that, and maybe why you said yes, and what have you seen happen at Van Hoosen as a result of what the Lord's brought you into?
Yeah. So, I mean, I get, maybe it's because of kind of the beginnings of my testimony of coming to faith it was very closely tied with sports, and Mr. Went was my gym teacher and then wrestling coach. And so sports and faith have always just been pretty closely tied together. So when it came to FCA, it just made sense to me that I had been an assistant coach for many years. I was an assistant coach for Ray Went throughout college, and just continued to learn from him and him be my mentor. And then when I got a job and started coaching, and then at Van Hoosen, taking on the role as a head coach of both the cross country team and the wrestling team, now it's like I'm in charge, and I'm the one who's making the decisions. I'm the one who's setting the tone. I'm the one who's setting the values of what we're gonna value. And so it just, at that point, because of the influence Jesus had in my life, just going in and being a good coach and winning games was not going to do it. It wasn't going to be enough anymore. So it's almost like it became that the sports are the thing that draws them to FCA. In fact, is kind of more the process. And so getting to know kids through the sports, cross country and wrestling, and then getting to know them there and inviting them to FCA and meeting some new kids at FCA was where I feel like it's really going to make an impact. And then them taking it from the FCA huddle and bringing it back out to the sports and being my leaders, my leaders in the sense of setting an example, having that higher purpose besides just being a good athlete, has been a nice, it's going back and forth that way. So yeah, I can't see really coaching. Even if we didn't have an FCA huddle, I'd still find some way to huddle, it just doesn't make sense not to do it that way anymore. Otherwise, what are we doing with our time here?
Well, and I appreciate that, because you don't, that framework that it provides, gives you something to plug into and build from. Can you share a little bit about what you and Ray do in the summers that you were a part of in the Avondale School District that you've taken beyond? You've taken it on the road.
Yeah. So 7th grade, that's, was when it started, and it started more informal, where Ray he just got a group of 20 or 30 guys to meet up over the summer, and we'd play some sports and speedball, basketball, dodgeball, and then he'd get us pizza, and it was just an unofficial thing. And then it just kind of kept growing each year, just grassroots. And people always ask, "Oh, what church is this?" And it's not part of a church. He just invited guys to play some sports and eat pizza, and then he could share something, right? And we're going to listen. He just bought us pizza, right? We're going to listen to what he has to say. And so it just kept growing and growing. And then it was like a 10 to 12 thing. And then we started expanding it. There was like a fitness thing. And the whole time there was always a shirt with a Bible verse you'd get for participating. And so then we added a fitness part. Then we added the Bible study part, an official kind of time for Bible study. And so it went from being from 10 to 12 to like 8 to 1 or something by the time everything was done. And so that kept growing. And then Ray had retired from Avondale and started helping out at Imlay City, closer to where he lives. And so a few years ago, deciding, hey, he's getting to know some of these kids at Imlay City. Why not start it there? And so the last few years, been growing more the middle school, high school age at Imlay City, where we'll get a group to show up there and we'll play some sports, and we'll have, a message. And a lot of it is related to FCA stuff. And then in the meantime, back at Avondale, we've been doing evenings where we'll get high school, college, and outside of college guys will keep coming back. Guys who, I don't know the full story behind all the guys that come, but I think a large number of them, they don't go to church, right? This is their exposure to the gospel through just meeting up because they enjoyed Mr. Went. So it's been cool to see both of those influences, the influence still at Avondale, and then the seeds that are growing at Imlay City.
Amazing. And I mean, you guys were doing FCA before you even knew about FCA, because you were using sport as the draw.
Right.
There was some intentional time, but as both of you grew in your own journeys, you said, well, that little bit's not enough. We got to take it to another level. And I want to be honest with you, all the leaders that when we started rekindled the FCA huddle back at Avondale about 4 or 5 years ago, they all came out of that summer fun program. Right. They were all part of it. So the seeds that were planted in there, man, were cultivated. There was opportunity. And I can't tell you how much I'm inspired by that whole program. And I would love for that to be a model and a part of everything where that FCA is at the high school level. I feel like summer fun would be just like a natural fit to have in the community because it gets them sooner, you know, and there's that thing in the summer where you get to go, you get to have some fun. There's some sport, but there's also that very intentional time and just planting some really good seeds in these young people. So, and then the cool part is I've come to those never too olds where you've got age ranges from middle school all the way up to people in their 30s gathering together to compete, to really have some fun and compete hard because that's always a part of it. But then you have pizza, but then there's that intentional time. And man, I just think it's fantastic. So I want to thank you for carrying that tradition on. And in my heart, I want to keep this thing going. And it's a part of Coach Went's legacy. And it's a part of what he's leaving behind is this amazing thing. I call it the accountability sweet spot. You know, Coach Went was a guide for you and discipled you. And then you became a disciple that wanted to disciple others. And now you're doing that now. And so all these young athletes that you get to influence, you're training them up to influence their peers. And this is how the gospel is supposed to work. It's what gives us purpose. And sport is just the connector. It's just this amazing connector that will bring people together that normally would not be together. So
can I add to that, Tim?
Absolutely.
I was thinking about how sports are a nice spot for kids to step up and take these leadership roles, right? Where they can become a disciple maker on a sports team, where it might be a little intimidating, just, you know, talking to a stranger on the street. But kids come to an FCA huddle and they get coached up and they take on leadership roles and they start growing and seeing themselves as a leader. And then they go out to their sports teams, right? Where that's an area where they can make an impact. They can step up as a leader, and other kids are going to listen to them as their teammate. And so, that works out real nice.
Amen. And I think the best is yet to come in the Rochester School District. And just, again, so grateful for you and your commitment level to this and being a part of our team. And I'm excited for our time next Wednesday when I get to come out and as we dive into the core book. And I hear that there's been 25 to 30 that are showing up at your huddle.
Yeah, we have more like 35 coming up on 40 now.
That's absolutely amazing.
We're out of room for chairs, so some kids have to stand, but that's all right.
Well, that's a great problem to have, and we want to give all honor, praise, and glory to God and how He's working in the hearts of those young people. But it would not have happened without a guide like you. So thank you again, and God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tim.
Well, that was encouraging, and I'm so grateful for Sean and his willingness to say yes to this. And it just goes to show you when you really live out your purpose and you make Jesus the Lord of your life, you feel compelled to get back with the gifts and abilities that God has given you and where He has placed you. And so if you are a man or a woman that would love to be a part of our ministry and be an empowered volunteer like Sean, we would love to have that conversation with you. And so reach out to us. But till again, on next time on Testimony Tuesday, this is Tim Morton with Southeast Michigan FCA, where our mission is to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and